Dr. Haddad, you are from Aleppo, the besieged city of Aleppo in Syria. How is the situation generally in Syria at the moment? It is very confusing for people from outside the country, for foreigners to judge the situation. Who is fighting against whom, actually?
The situation in Aleppo is not that much comfortable, of course, neither in Syria. It is a very difficult situation and at high risk, especially the Christians and the new converters. The situation in Aleppo and in Syria, actually it is not a fight with an enemy from outside, it is a fight with an enemy from inside. We have more than 86 countries fighting on our lands and through 45 groups of rebels. The minimum of the rebels number is less than 3,000 to 5,000. The maximum is in tens and thousands. Yes.
So in the West, the imagination of what is happening is a little bit naive. In the West, we only think there are three groups, the Islamic State, the so-called peaceful rebels, and the so-called regime. What is the truth? Is there anything like peaceful rebels, or are they all having an Islamist agenda?
Actually, it is an Islamic agenda. They started very tiny groups of Free Syrian Army, which they were purely Syrians from Syria and from the rural areas. They start doing some demonstrations, some fightings. They got the weapons. Then all of a sudden developed into a major scale all over Syria. So we start having the major group of Jabhat al-Nusra. In 2014, last year, we start having the ISIS, which is a new developed ideology, but it is Muhammad's ideology, killing and diminishing everything called civilization or culture or even Christians. So we are, actually the government is fighting against all these people. They are not the owners of the land. 80% of these people, they are from foreign countries. As I said, we have more than 86 countries who are fighting against our government. And in Aleppo, we are living in in an area which is the government is holding. Now we are about 2 millions. The remaining places which is occupied by the rebels, it is about 4 millions. And unfortunately, I can say that more than 1.5 million from Aleppo itself only been displaced internally and outside. We have more than 4.5 million refugees outside of the country and more than 7.6 millions of internally displaced people. And everyone is suffering, losing his properties, his safetyness in his house. He's losing everything, unfortunately.
One group of rebels, the so-called Free Syrian Army, is actually financed and weaponed by the West, by the USA.
Everybody. All these 45 groups of fighters, the rebels, all over Syria. Sometimes they are gathering together, merging into another group of larger group. But all these groups are financed, supported, armed by Saudi Arabia, Qatar, via some European states, countries, and United States.
Is the is the cause justified? Are they fighting for a free Syria or for the opposite?
I don't think they are fighting for free Syria. Some of my patients, they are relatives of ISIS and relatives of Jabhat al-Nusra. And they are not in good terms with their relatives, but every now and then they are hearing, and they are saying, we came just to destroy Syria. They are not. If they are planning for future freedom of Syria and they are planning to reign above Syria, why they should destruct the infrastructure? If you are coming to stay here, why you are going to destroy the infrastructure.
Why do they want to destroy Syria?
Because Syria in the last, before the war, few years, really reached to a good level of satisfaction, safetyness, all types of communication. Everybody visited Aleppo before the war in 2010 and before. Nobody realized that this is Arab world. It is very, very safe. They kept on saying it is second to Switzerland in safetyness. They can walk outside of the houses, girls, mothers, daughters, at 1 midnight, 2 midnight, and nothing happens to them, returning. And the number of beggars and the number of robbers and stealers, it went very low.
In the West, the Western media depict President Assad as something like an evil dictator and his regime as something like an evil dictatorship. How would you describe the situation in Syria before the war, before the civil war?
I think before and still now, Bashar al-Assad is one of the great supporters as a president to Christians and minorities. He is one for the security and safetyness of Syria altogether. The problem in our leadership, in Syrian leadership, they are not followers, they are leaders. And Europe and the States, they don't like to have a leader. They want a follower, like a puppet, like other Western countries. Whatever been informed or told from the other side, from East or from West or from America, they should follow. Take all the Arab countries, you can say 98% of them, they are followers, they are puppets. They don't have their word to say it. And they claim that they have an authoritative things, but unfortunately nothing. And if you go back to Bashar Assad's father, Hafiz al-Assad, in spite that being said that he is authoritative, he is dictatorship, but he was very simple man in keeping the land quiet. And he was fighting for safetyness of his country, for developing of his country. Unfortunately, the West, they couldn't cope with this understanding of Hafiz. And Bashar is very well educated gentleman. He is highly educated by the Arab culture and by the British understandings. He got his higher studies from London. He got married to his wife Asma, and they got 3 children. They are grown up, and he is a social man. His heart is for his society, for his people, and they feel very, very safe to have the Armenians and Christians in the country, because all the Christians until now, they couldn't see us fighting. None of the Christians and the Armenians is holding the gun, but all the Muslims, you can say almost all the Muslims, they have guns in their houses. They are trying to fight. They are planning to get their revenge and be against the Bashar. But actually, his people, his army is trying to protect as much as they can. But unfortunately, the West is much more stronger in finances and weapons than Syria, of course. But for time being, since last month in October, when the decision from United Nations taken for Russia to intervene, and now the balance is getting for the sake of Syria with the government, gaining many more lands, much more better life in the cities which been occupied, and I hope someday will come, which is not too far, for Syria just to get these people outside of Syria, hopefully.
So you would say the West was supporting the wrong side and Russia does the right thing right now?
Exactly. West never supported the right side, including in Palestine, including in Afghanistan, including in Somalia with Ethiopia, including in Iraq and now in Syria. If West is more clever to be supportive, they should support the Syrian army and not the Free Syrian Army or Jabhat al-Nusra or ISIS. Just I can say one question, which everybody knows the answer, but nobody is saying the answer. Who created ISIS? And who is feeding ISIS? Who is created ISIS and who is feeding ISIS? Nobody can be created by himself. Somebody else is going to bring something inside. And we think that the West, especially the Americans, they created ISIS to protect them. They are now against.
So the claims in the Western media that President Assad used torture against political opponents and that he is throwing bombs on his own people and his own cities is a lie, is a propaganda lie?
It is not only a lie, it is exaggerated.
Yeah.
Every single president, he has right to some extent to control his opponents, even in the West. Even in the West. Wherever you go, there are opponents. So you will give them some limitations. After that, they have no right to explode the country, either by sayings or by weapons. For that reason, Bashar al-Assad did not trying to do something which others are not doing. In West, they are doing much more difficult status, but unfortunately, it is not in the news because they are suppressing the news. Another thing about Bashar al-Assad, he never bombarded or he never killed an innocent people. He knows that this building is a center of ISIS or Jabhat al-Nusra or one of the headquarters of the Free Army. So after controlling the place with the radar satellites, he sent and he exploded that building. Of course, if there are some innocent people in that building, they will be killed because weapon cannot, the bombs or the rockets cannot differentiate between innocent person and non-innocent person, cannot differentiate. But they are not never till now, as we are hearing and seeing, never been bombarded any building which is only civilians. And sometimes they are taking like as people to be their shelters. The Free Syrian Army or Jabhat al-Nusra or ISIS. And because of that, the government is very, very cautious not to bombard any place which are people taking shelter.
You are Christian, you are an Armenian Baptist. How was the situation of the Christians before the civil war in Syria? Did you have all freedom, all religious freedom?
Not only the freedom, we had the full freedom in Syria, in worshiping, in preaching, in building our churches. The government used to give us land free of charge. The electricity is free of charge of all the monasteries and churches. The water is free of charge, okay? And they keep on controlling these areas by sending their bodyguards to keep from any attack in case if there will be. And they are very alert for the worship areas. And Syria is one of the unique countries all over the world which allowing for Christians to have their properties and registered by the church in the name of the church. And we are free to use it as much. You can have hectares and you can have one flat. It doesn't matter. And when your denomination is getting bigger and larger, the government, you can approach the government for a piece of land and they will give it to you.
How is the situation of the Christians today in the civil war? How much are you suffering from the civil war?
I think many of them, they are suffering now because of the attacks from the neighbors' houses and flats. Let me clarify this a little bit more. We Christians in Aleppo and in Syria, we have our own communities in the midst of the society, Islamic society. Till the war, we didn't have any problems with the society, Muslim society. But nowadays they start having some other views about us. And because of the pressure and the persecution of the Christians in Syria because of this war, the number of Christians in Aleppo, for an example, it went down from 400,000 to 170,000. Now we are less than 50,000. And almost all these Christians, they are getting outside of Aleppo. Either they will be resettling themselves in another cities in Syria, or they are going outside as refugees. But none of the Christians, Syrian Christians, are joining the refugee camps in Jordan, Lebanon, Iraq, or in Turkey, because most of these camps, or almost all the members of these camps, refugees, they are the families of the rebels. So they are having a hatred heart against any Christian coming and joining them.
How many Christians lost their homes? How many Christians in Syria became homeless or dislocated because of the war?
I think the maximum was, to start with, it was in Homs. Actually, they lost more than 110,000 people. They lost their houses in Homs. And similar to that number, or a little bit less, you can say it is in Aleppo. All Christians actually, especially the quarters which is hit by the mortars from the rebels, already they have lost their houses.
In the areas controlled by the FSA, how are the Christians treated there by the FSA?
The Free Syrian Army.
Yeah, sure.
Actually, there is no single Christians in the FSA. You can't find. Because any single Christian passed through their lands, the occupied areas. If it is